Good morning.
Hi.
I'm here with Dr. Rich Blundell. He's someone you're going to meet towards the end of this course in our Art and Big Ideas module. Rich is a geologist. He is an ecologist. He's a cultural communicator and an eco-philosopher. He has his PhD in big history. You're going to learn much more about that, but ultimately, continuity is the name of his game. And so when we meet Rich later, we're going to meet him at the mystery before the Big Bang. But today, I brought Rich here, I asked him, to meet us in our present moment at the intersection of human and artificial intelligence. This is an issue that has been coming up in the course a lot. And so this is something that Rich has been working with a lot and we've been talking about a lot. So while the course emphasizes connection to the natural world, it's inclusive of ourselves. It's also inclusive of our technology. At first glance, this maybe seems like a paradox, but I invited Rich to come in to speak about the relationship between human and artificial intelligence. He sees things really exciting with AI, and he also thinks that we should exercise our own endowment of human intelligence while also using AI. So Rich, thank you for being here. Thank you for engaging in this conversation. I know you have a very vast spectrum of knowledge, and I'm asking you to kind of plop us here in this current moment with all of this knowledge that you sort of hold, which the students are going to peek at a bit later. But trusting that that's there, I thought that maybe a good way to start would be for you to give us just a little bit of an overview of the terrain here. There's this term ecological intelligence that you often use. Sometimes you talk about artful intelligence, human intelligence, and now we're dealing with artificial intelligence. So I sort of see these kind of mapped along a continuum. And I thought maybe that would be a good place to start for you to kind of differentiate and tell us a little bit about those intelligences.
Okay, well, that's a lot of intelligence to cover. Yeah, so let's see, where do we begin? Well, first of all, I look forward to seeing you back at the Mystery Before the Big Bang. Can't wait to find out what that's all about. Okay, so intelligence and continuity, that's a huge one. You mentioned that. I take continuity very seriously.
And
So
what do you mean by that? Like, what is that?
I mean that it's an ever-present, abiding sense of reality that one can carry with them. And once you really take on this sense of continuity, not only does it connect all the intelligences that you just mentioned, it connects me to them. It connects me to everything. It connects me to the Big Bang. It connects me to the mystery before the Big Bang. It connects me to you. It connects me to technology. It's the thing that does that very thing that you said, which is to see that our technologies and us and nature and the metaphysical realm, whatever that means, they're all on a continuum. Everything's on a continuum. And that has consequences. That has consequences along that continuum as well.
Okay. So to go back to the question, can you, now that we sort of have that continuum sort of holding in our brains, can you talk about those different intelligences?
Sure. Where do you want to start?
Ecological?
Okay, well, so I see ecology. Okay, most people when they hear the term ecology, they think, oh, nature or sustainability or recycling. But what ecology actually is the scientific study of relationships. So when I use the term ecological intelligence, I'm speaking specifically about relational intelligence. Ecology is the study of relationships. Ecological intelligence is an intelligence of relationships. It is relational intelligence. It's the intelligence that inhabits relationships. It is the
And when,
intelligence that comes from relationships.
right. And when you tell your story of the cosmos, the cosmic evolution, you start there, right? Like you start with the relationships in the cosmic microwave background radiation.
The first thing we discern in the universe is relationships. It's the relationships between the earliest thing we discern in the universe are relationships between temperatures and energies and things like that. That's the most primary, the most primitive thing in the universe are relationships, which goes to show that we live in a universe that is grounded in relationships. And
Okay.
from those
So,
earliest primeval relationships, they create new things. The fundamental creativity of the universe comes from the intelligence in primeval relationships.
Great.
I'm saying
Awesome.
that as a scientist, by the way.
Yes, and you sort of snuck in artful intelligence in there, right? So you started talking about the creativity of the universe, and I'd like you to bring us
I don't
now.
know. I don't know that yet. Let's not
Okay.
assume that yet. We'll get
Okay.
to that. But I think we should hold off on artful intelligence.
That's what I was. Well, that's what I was going to do. I was going to say let's put a pin in that
Okay.
statement that you just made, and now can you tell us how ecological intelligence is or is not embedded within what we can now talk about as human intelligence?
Actually, can I distinguish first between what we might think of as natural intelligence and ecological intelligence?
Sure.
Because I've often been tempted to use the phrase natural intelligence when I talk about my work as opposed to ecological intelligence.
Because you think it's more accessible?
Well, because I have a particular attraction and fondness for nature. And so I like to think about nature's intelligence and natural intelligence. But what I realize is that when there's a relationship involved, even if it's in nature, even if it's between protons and electrons, or whenever there's a relationship involved, the relationship can have a quality. In other words, it can be in the right relationship or wrong, and if it's right, something new is created. Or it can be not right, otherwise known as wrong. I'm trying to stay away from making a judgmental claim, but my point is certain relationships create new things. Other relationships destroy things. When you frame things in terms of relational intelligence, otherwise known as ecological intelligence, suddenly you've introduced this idea that they can be right or wrong, or creative or not creative. If you use the term natural intelligence, there's no opportunity to introduce that right or, I don't want to use the word wrong.
Yeah,
it makes it sound like I'm judging, but I'm not.
Right, and it makes it sound like a binary, or that like destruction always exists in the wrong relationship, which is not necessarily true, right?
That's not what I'm
Sometimes
saying.
I know that's not what you're saying, and I want to just clarify because sometimes destruction is right relationship.
That's right. But I'm just saying that it adds that dimension, regardless of whether it's good or bad. It adds ecological, because it's relational, adds this dimension of something new can happen.
Well, and this is good because we're using the term ecological being throughout the whole course. Timothy Morton uses ecological being. And so this blurry, weird, like what we're feeling out right now is exactly what we're going to be feeling out through the whole semester. So this is great.
And the point here is just to move beyond what I'm also tempted to call natural intelligence. I think natural intelligence is a great term. I just don't use it because I like the term ecological intelligence better, because an ecological relationship introduces this dimension of something else can happen too, whereas natural intelligence doesn't give us that. So ecological intelligence is the intelligence of relationships. Those relationships can they can foster emergent phenomena or not, so there is a state of the relationship that can be right. I'm only saying this because later on I use the phrase right relation. That right relation is a creative relation. Mm-hmm. That when relationships are right, they create. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I use that. So anyway, that's natural intelligence and ecological intelligence. Now we can move on.
Now bring us to human intelligence. First of all, I just want to say one of the things that you say in regards to human intelligence and AI is you say like people are so excited about AI. That's great. We should be excited about AI. But if we're that excited about AI, we should be so excited about human intelligence because like look at what we can do. Yeah. So maybe that's a good place to start.
Well, I think I've been thinking a lot about AI. There are all these sort of hidden things that it's doing that are, and one of them what I see is that it's drawing attention to these intelligences that are within us that we are unaware of. The fact that AI is showing up now, it's showing me how it's revealing all these deeper intelligences that are within us that we have failed to acknowledge. That's really exciting. That's what's so exciting to me about AI, is that it's revealing these deeper intelligences that are in us that we have failed to acknowledge are within us.
So really what you're doing right now is setting up an ecological relationship between human
Well,
Well,
not only an
I guess that's
ecological
redundant,
one,
right? Ecological relationship. But you're setting up a relationship between human intelligence and artificial intelligence, and that when you put the two of them together, they reveal things about each other.
in right relation. This is why I was trying to make that distinction earlier. It's really important to understand that there's a right relation for those intelligences to be in, and there's a not so right one. See what I
Okay.
mean?
So
And that's really important, that there's a way to be in relation with this AI that's right. I'm not going to say what the alternative is. But the alternative is not so right. But there's also a right relation.
yeah, so I think that brings me to sort of the next topic that I wanted to ask you about, which is you've been using AI a lot. And to what you just said, like there are ways to use it that feel right, and there are ways to use it that feel not so right. And so I thought maybe you could tell us a little bit about your experience with using it. Maybe talk a little bit about when it has been useful, because I know it has. But I also know that it's really disappointed you at times. Sometimes it surprises you. Sometimes it kind of scares you or alarms you. So I thought maybe you could give us a little bit of a window into the relationship that you've been developing with AI.
It's hard to really talk about without sounding like a jerk, but it's really failed. Yeah, I've dabbled with Gemini and ChatGPT, but the one I've really spent my time most with is Anthropic's Claude, which is supposed to be, the best or whatever, the most innovative, whatever. But man, it fails. It fails. It fails. It fails. Not only is it wrong a lot, but it's so easy to like back it into a corner and make it trip up, or it's so easy to like point out its flaws and to make it backtrack and have to apologize. It's like, come on. And I'm not trying to like say that, oh, I'm so smart, I can make mistakes or what, but I'm trying to have it help me be more productive. I'm trying to have it do hard work with me. And it keeps dropping the ball. Not only does it drop the ball, but it sends me down dead ends, and it's like on wild goose
And sometimes
chases.
it like bluffs, right? Or it sort of like hedges.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if I call its bluff, it's like, oh, yeah, you saw, it has to apologize and back me.
Yeah.
And then in the meantime, I've spent half a day. That said, if I needed to like draw me a diagram or do a little bit of coding here and there, things that I can't do, it'll do it in a second. And that's amazing. That's great. Very impressive. However, when I'm having to ask it to do the serious, creative reasoning and real imaginative stuff, it's the word that comes to mind is pathetic. It's pathetic as a creative partner. That said, sometimes when it's wrong, its hallucinations spur in me a creative insight that I can then run with. But it didn't have the creative insight. It made a mistake that it took me, the human, to be like, that's actually brilliant. And I'm going to draw the creative brilliance out of it and turn it into something else. It didn't do that. It took it took the intelligence, it took my human intelligence, which we still need to talk about what that is, but it took my intelligence to do that. So
it sounds like you're describing a particular posture that you maintain when you're using it. Like there's an awareness that you have where you don't just kind of check out and let it do your work. There's this relationship that you have with it. So could you describe a little bit, again, because I'm thinking about my students, I'm thinking about like when they're engaging with it, which they inevitably will, and they should, because it's now it's a tool that's out there. How would you describe that particular kind of posture that helps you stay alert and stay critical and creative while you're engaging with it?
Well, I think you're hitting the nail on the head there, that I have decided that, look, I'm not paying for this tool for it to do my work so that I don't have to do it. If I'm going to pay for it, it's because I want to improve. I want to improve me. I'm not just using it to get ahead or to write my essays so that I don't have to write them. I'm employing this thing because I want to develop my creative capacities, my intellectual capacities, my professional capacities. And for that, there's no shortcut for that. I'm trying to enlist it as a partner in my self-development. And if it's not doing that, I know it. I can lie to myself. I can't lie to myself. You know what I mean? If it's not helping me develop, I know it. So I'm not going to just relinquish that opportunity to this AI. And there are times when it says, I'm sorry, I got that wrong, or I gave you the impression that I knew more than I did. Can you enlighten me about this? And I'm like, well, wait a minute. No, I'm not here to enlighten you, Claude. I'm here to be enlightened through this process. And so, no, I'm not going to improve your model. That's not what I'm paying for. I'm not paying to improve Anthropic's model. I'm here to improve the Rich Blundell model. You know what I mean?
Right. So, yeah. So, I mean, everything to me, like as I'm listening, it just comes back to this relationship between human intelligence and artificial intelligence.
Well, none of
and
that,
maintaining,
but the relationship between me and that thing, what's the right relation between me and this tool?
right. And maintaining, like keeping active the human intelligence while the artificial intelligence is being activated.
Yeah. And I can feel it eroding the human intelligence. So the human intelligence, just to finish that up, is that this goes back to a theory that I teach called Earthling theory, that it is this long evolutionary history of humans with all the different habitats of the earth, over the past, 6, 7, 8 million years of our evolution. Only the human species, Homo sapiens, have had an intimate and sequential relationship, an ecological relationship, a right relationship with every habitat on the planet. And it's because our species alone has had that history. That has what has endowed us with our very specific human intelligence. It's very creative. It's very, chimps are great, but they don't have it. Dolphins, great, but they don't have it. Our species alone is the only species that has had this particular relationship with every habitat on the planet, and that's what makes us uniquely human. I can feel at times when dealing and interacting with this AI that it's starting to erode that endowment. I can feel it, that this intrinsic intelligence that's part of my makeup, it's part of everyone's makeup. We've inherited it. But I can feel it starting to erode that. And I think that that's really important. That's one of the scariest things about AI, is that I can feel it eroding that. And unless you're aware of that, it's happening in the background. You're relinquishing that. I think young people, students who have this intelligence within them, they may not know it because it's something that you have to someone has to point it out to you and teach you to and get you to appreciate it. And if that doesn't happen, we're at the risk of forfeiting it.
Yeah. And so I wanted to just kind of just dive in for a second, zoom in on this human intelligence, because you're someone, and I'm someone, we really, really value our human intelligence, and we use it all the time in our work. And so just for students or anyone who's watching this that maybe isn't as familiar with it, or not as, just aware of it, that even though they have it and they're using it all the time, could you sort of the same kind of set of questions, could you talk about maybe like how human intelligence has been useful? Has it ever let you down? When does it surprise you? Has it ever alarmed you? Like kind of the same sorts of questions that we just looked at with AI. Can you tell us a little bit about human intelligence and why you are such a believer in it?
Well, of course it's imperfect. I mean, it always, of course. However, it's gotten us here. It has gotten us to this point. So I'm a big believer in human intelligence, because I think human intelligence is the sort of end member. I don't mean the ultimate end, but it is the current end member of a long lineage of right relations. As a geologist, you study how things have evolved over the span of life on Earth. And then, as I got into big history, I looked at how that geologic story extends all the way back to the beginning of the cosmos. It's really just a story of relationships. And because we're here, it's self-evident that it's been right relationships all along. If it hadn't been, we wouldn't be here. You see, this is what makes me appreciate right relation. If we had been in wrong relation, if our ancestors had been in wrong relation, we wouldn't be here. It's a real powerful way to appreciate just how powerful right relation is. So anyway, I'm a big believer in human intelligence. Mm-hmm. And what I can say is that AI ain't it. It doesn't have it. AI does not have that. It's not it. It's just categorically a different thing. Sure, it's impressive. It mimics human intelligence. It it tries really hard to look like human intelligence. They even call it neural networks. And it does metaphorically look like it. It sort of looks like it. There's a lot of analogs between the way a neural network processes binary information. But that's not how human brains work. It's not. The phrase that I use, which just sums it all up, is that compute does not equal relate. Human intelligence is relational all the way down to the beginning of the universe. That's what human intelligence is. It's relational intelligence. AI is computational intelligence. It's not the same thing. So this conversation about, well, is AI aligned? What's the alignment problem? The answer to the alignment problem is that AI is not aligned. We know the answer to it. It cannot be aligned because it's not human intelligence. It is categorically different. It might have some superficial things that make it look like it and sound like it. And when it puts it out, its output in language, it definitely looks like human intelligence, but it isn't. It doesn't have the deep, they call it deep learning. That is a misnomer. It's not deep. What's deep is our intelligence, because our intelligence goes back into the Earth's history, into the cosmic history.
Yeah. And I think
AI is on the continuum. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's not on the continuum. I'm just saying it's not the same thing as human intelligence.
Well, and then the continuum is not linear, right? Like AI can be sort of an offshoot tool in a, like it's not the continuum is a sort of entangled web, right? And just to say, like, we're not two kind of nature loving people that are just kind of like, rah, AI, because we actually have worked with and talked to,
AI. I think it's
right.
amazing.
Well, I mean, and you're using it. And I'm thinking about, our colleague up at Dartmouth, the neuroscientist, AI programmer, and another colleague that I just talked to at Rutgers, who's an engineer, works with AI all the time. And both of them are just like, yeah, no, like it's not, like, I think we have to be careful not to confuse sort of the branding of AI and the language that is being used to try to get people to use it as a product and like actually what it is. And that's what we're trying to
and what it does. And I think these sort of sci-fi doomsday scenarios about AI, I can't comprehend what a super intelligent AI with agency is capable of doing. I can't comprehend it. Nobody can. And so I can't defend against it. And I don't think we can. But what we can defend against is how I think the more immediate and real threats of AI are the way that it accumulates power, the way that and these are things that we understand. Economic dynamics accumulate power. AI is doing the same thing. It's doing the same thing, but just in a much more accelerated and exponential way. What's much more dangerous about AI, even in the short term, is just the way that it creates these power dynamics. And we can defend against that by understanding our own intelligences better, the human intelligence that we all have.
You said something earlier that I don't want to gloss over, and I kind of want to start to bring us home a little bit. You said you can feel it eroding your human intelligence. And I think the real danger is when people use it and don't feel it eroding their intelligence.
That's happening all the time.
What's that?
That people don't know the depths of their own intelligence.
Right. And so, and they brain rot, right? Like everybody's talking about brain rot now. Like it's becoming kind of in the zeitgeist. I think it's good. So I'm going to just stand in as a proxy for my students right now. I'm going to say, okay, so this is all great. Thanks. But I'm a student and the world is crazy and I got to work and I got to deal with my family and I got to commute and I got to do all these things and I have all these assignments and I'm trying to take 6 classes this semester so that I can graduate early because school's expensive, blah, 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 all these things. How do you suggest that they use AI in their school? And simultaneously, how do you suggest that they use human intelligence? How do you suggest that they grow with AI? And how do you suggest that they grow with their human intelligence as a student?
Okay, but the fact that we have pressures and obligations and all those things. That doesn't negate what I'm saying about knowing the power of your own innate intelligence. If you don't know that, you're going to be a victim to those things worse. And also that stance. Don't let the tool use you. And if you're not using it to better you, it's using you to better itself. So if you're just using it to get the job done, you got to change the overall circumstances. Stop taking on these things that aren't necessary. That's a management problem.
Yeah, I'm also hearing you sort of say, like, take your human intelligence with you wherever you go because it comes with you wherever you go, right? So, like, it's there,
but you have
so
to be
use
aware of
it.
it. You have to.
Yes.
You don't even know. People don't even know it's there. So,
And it's such a tool, right? Like, it's such a amazing thing to have. And so
well,
just,
and I think nature is what teaches it to you. Like, it comes from nature ultimately, and so that's where, like, nature will teach you. It will show you where it is in you. And I know that sounds naive to say, but actually observing nature and understanding how nature works is actually teaching you how it works within you, because that's where it comes from.
Well, this will be a great, I think the students should watch this in the beginning of the semester and then at the end of the semester after doing all the field work and see if that sentence makes more sense to them, having engaged with it for 14 weeks.
And if you can do that, you become, instead of being a leaf that's like in the brook just getting tossed around and never getting out, you can get out of the brook. You have much more sort of like wisdom to see what matters.
Or another way to say that is, like, you can be a leaf that's not getting pushed around by the brook, but actually like surfing the brook.
That's right. You can you can be a part of it. You can participate in it and not just be a victim of it.
Right. Which brings me, I think we can go to the last, what, go ahead.
Well, that's it. I mean,
yeah.
Artful intelligence is how all of this intelligence gets expressed in life. Like, that's what artful intelligence is. It's how all these intelligences converge and integrate into an expression of how one lives their life. That's what artful intelligence is. It's how we express these intelligences, how they manifest in our lives. That's what it is.
Yeah, which essentially, I mean, you just answered, the last thing I was going to say was that, like, your work with Oika focuses on creating a beautiful future now. And I was going to ask you to describe what a beautiful future looks like that includes the full continuum of all of these intelligences, which I think you essentially just did that. But do you want to say it in any different way, or you think that was good?
No, I think that's it. I think it's about full participation in the story, like the story that has been going since before we come into existence and will continue on. But it's like we're all given this chance to participate and
show up.
Yeah, to show up.
Yeah,
and,
like, don't offload to AI. Be in relationship with it, right? Show up with your human intelligence, your artful. Yeah. Well, thank you.
Sure.
This is great. We'll see you in week 10.
See you there.
See you there
All
at
right.
the mystery.
All right.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Rich.
Sure. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye.